Subsidy seems to have been removed, and I honestly don't know yet if it's a good or bad thing. I want to believe it's a great thing, and it will help to stabilize our crumbling economy. But when I think of how much I'm spending and will continue to spend on fueling my car and my generator, I'm quite nervous and quietly cautious. But the one thing I know is that it isn't business as usual, and I have to go back to my budget and adjust accordingly. Which is why today's topic is a perfect way to get ready for the second half of 2023. There's no better way to do this than with my guest, Omilola Oshikoya, financial powerhouse and expert. Omilola Oshikoya is a senior executive with 20 years experience in wealth and finance. She's on a mission to foster wealth creation and economic prosperity in Africa using innovation, technology, startups and entrepreneurship, media, and financial literacy as catalysts for transformation. She's the founder of The Richer Woman Inc., The Richer Media Limited, and Wolfin Tech Limited. She's also an author of multiple books. Thank you so much, Omi.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here with me today, and always answering my lastminute.com calls. So.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. So, why did I decide I wanted to do this? Subsidy. I've been spending in the last 1 week, like all of us, crazy amounts of money on the basic necessities. And I just kept thinking to myself, where do we go from here? So for me, the first step is budgets. How can we budget realistically? What does budgeting even mean to start off with?
Okay, so imagine you're going from maybe the island to Lakwe Lakes, right? It'll be easier if you probably use Google Maps. Thank God for Google Maps if you haven't been there before, right? If you, without Google Maps, it'll probably take you longer to find it if you're going to go how we used to do it before. And so that's what a budget is. It's essentially a roadmap that guides you in your financial life, right?
Okay.
So it shows you a snapshot of what you're spending and where you can cut things out, where you need to maybe improve on your revenue so that you can survive situations like this. So budgeting is so important in these times because now if you have a budget, if you already have one, what you then do is you now change the figures for your petrol, right? So if you were spending say 10,000 naira a week on petrol and it's gone up to 30,000 naira a week now, you would just change that, and then obviously it's automated, hopefully, if you're not doing it the manual way, and then you would see what the effect is on your budget, right? You see the difference between the expenses and what your income and your expenses will give you either you have a budget surplus or a budget deficit.
Okay, so let me interrupt you. For certain types of people, we kind of get what you're saying. If my driver needed to do a budget, how does he do it?
Well,
he may not know how to automate it. It may just be biro and paper. Where does he start
You're very surprised because a lot of people have smartphones now.
But not a lot of people know how to use them efficiently.
Exactly. So if you have a smartphone, if you're tech savvy, then you get an app. If you don't have a smartphone but you have access to a computer, right, you can just create an Excel sheet and have your income, your salary, if you have any other income like dividends, if you're married and get spousal income, whatever income you get, right? And then your expenses, list your expenses and subtract your expenses from your income. Ideally, your expenses should be less than your income.
How much less?
A lot less. There's no percent. You should have a substantial disposable income, which is when you take out your expenses from your income, whatever is left is your disposable income that you can use for maybe to meet any of your financial goals. Now, if you don't have access to a computer, then just take a sheet of paper. I'm sure you're literate, so you know how to read and write. Then you do your again, you do the same thing. Take a sheet of paper and you list out what income do you receive. Sadly, a lot of people in Nigeria live on a daily basis. So if you're in a 9 to 5, it's easier you just do a monthly budget, right? But people that live on a daily basis, you're going to have to probably, it's more tedious, but it's the same principles anyway. Yeah.
Okay. So, how does subsidy impact this? I'm not even sure what the question is, to be honest.
Or is it what is subsidy?
Yeah, maybe we should even start with that. What is subsidy? Because that's today's buzzword.
Okay, so ideally, Nigeria, as we have oil, right? We export our crude oil as opposed to processing it, refining it, right? So we export it and then import the refined product, petrol, right? So we're essentially acting like countries that don't have oil, right? So if we were refining our oil, it would be cheaper. So from time memorial, it's buying petrol. That's why if you're in the UK, fueling or buying petrol in your car is expensive, right? But the government has cushioned this for us since the 70s. I think it was Obasanjo that brought this into play. By subsidizing the cost of petrol so that we don't feel the real cost, right? By essentially taking money and paying the oil marketers, right? So that it reduces the cost to the average man like me and you. But unfortunately, over the years, it's become extremely expensive and even worse for Nigeria because we have we've been suffering with what they call the Dutch disease, mono-resource economy, focusing on one major resource, and we don't have enough revenues right now at the moment. We are essentially borrowing, right? And in fact, our revenues, pretty much over 90% of our revenues is paying off our debt. So essentially, government has been borrowing to pay the fuel subsidy. It's not sustainable. It hasn't been sustainable for a long time, but even worse since about 2015. I remember I don't remember the year that Goodluck Jonathan brought it up, but essentially we've been struggling in our economy since 2017, the recession in 2016, then the pandemic in 2020, and all of that. So it's been really expensive, and because our revenues have reduced drastically, we are then borrowing to pay subsidies. So it's not sustainable anymore. So I understand why it needs to be taken out, right? So unfortunately, it's going to affect the average person because now we're going to be bearing the real cost of petrol. You see, it's almost like when you have a flat tire and there's a nail, right? And instead of taking out the nail and fixing the tire, you patch it. And you keep patching it. One day it's going to blow up. And that's essentially what's happening. We should have not been, we've been patching it all this while, but we should have fixed it. So sadly, we need to brace ourselves, like in the airplane, say, brace yourselves. We need to brace ourselves. It's going to be a bit
very turbulent.
But in the long run, it will get better for the country. Now, regardless for me, if I find that I'm not really bothered about, so let me give you an example. Would Dangote be bothered whether subsidy is taken out or not in the long run? Yes, his cost of production, and let's forget about the fact that, maybe I shouldn't use Dangote as an example because you're thinking about his refinery,
yes.
Right? Let me just say a Tony Elumelu, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, your revenue, your profits will reduce and all of it. It's going to affect a lot of dynamics. However, his real wealth is the fact that you can take all his assets away from him. You can take all his businesses away from him. But the real wealth is from here, the value that he can create, right? So in this situation, if yes, it's tough, people are thinking, oh my God, my expenses have gone up, but there are people that thrive in financial difficulties, right? So there are things you can do. So the first thing is, okay, how do I reduce my expenses, right? So an average person that's going to work, okay, maybe this is a good time to speak to your employer and ask for, can I work 2 days a week instead of 5 days a week, right? Can I work from home, 4 days a week, remote working. Thank God for the pandemic that has made remote working, realistic, sustainable, easier. People,
if there's lights.
Well, if there's power, it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off. But you look at it with the cost of your petrol, right? It may actually work. And then also your company may be able to provide some infrastructure, I don't know. But, you remote working, another thing is you can car share, you can share your cars, right? So, if you are going to work with find out who's working, who lives around the same area with you, and, share a ride. Or even now is a good time for all these ride-hailing companies like the Ubers, Bolts, to actually introduce rideshare as well. So if people are going in the same direction, that there'll be an option for people to, carpool, right?
Yeah.
Reduce your expenses. If you don't have to go out, don't go out. Oh, if you're a car owner, buy a Toyota Corolla. Buy a Toyota Corolla.
Oh my God.
There has to be cars, right? Two are quite very high profile and petrol consuming. And I think the blessing we didn't realize we were getting was a Toyota Corolla. My husband went to Ibadan yesterday and back, and I don't think he used like a quarter of the
petrol.
Yeah. So Toyota Corollas, they are fuel efficient, So maybe you need to. There's no point in taking a Land Rover to Ibadan. This is not the time to try and keep up with any Joneses. Focus on your lane and do what you need to do, right? So obviously with your budget, you look at things that you need to reduce, how you can cut down on, because it's going to affect everything. Yeah. Petrol is going to affect food. It's going to affect everything. This is not the time to make major investments, right? Because things are it's going to stabilize after a while. This is the time to think about how you can protect your cash if you are someone that has cash, right? So things like, you need to think about, thinking about maybe money market funds, to protect your cash where you can earn interest, not take too much risk.
The interest in money market funds are very tiny.
Well, the point is you're thinking about preserving your income right now, your cash, not creating wealth. You need to preserve and make sure that at least your cash is safe, your principal is safe, and you can earn some interest. Another thing is a retirement savings account is also a good way to also put your money. This is not pension, this is opening a retirement savings account because of tax benefits. Think about, there's so many things you can think about in terms of, but right now, also think about increasing your revenues, right? So you need to think, I know a couple of people who are working remotely in the sense of they've left their very high profile, maybe they work in a bank or an oil company. I know someone, she was a chief internal auditor of an oil company, and she resigned because she wanted to get, I know another person that was working in a major FMCG company and resigned because they could get jobs in the UK. Working from home, so they don't have to jackba. You can work from here. There are lots of jobs right now, and you can earn foreign exchange while working from here. Plugging into the global value chain.
What do you mean by that?
So same thing. So if you're looking for highly skilled jobs, software development, if you're a software developer, you can train to do that, earn a lot of money. Animator. If you're looking at low skill call center. Business process outsourcing. So if you're like an accountant or you can actually do some, or HR, you can do some of that remotely for international companies, whether it's Dubai, the US. So there's so many opportunities, right? It's only about expanding your mind and not looking at, oh my God, this is where you find the next set of millionaires. Look for right now. Okay, there's problems. What are the problems that people are facing now? How can you solve that problem, right? So it's time to really think out of the box.
Wow, you've said a lot, and I'm sitting down here thinking, I can't wait to watch this again. But is there such a thing as smart spending or smart saving?
I think saving spending is smart, right? It's a smart move. I think it's just about, right now you just need to be careful what you're spending on, really. Cut out excesses. And it's not just Nigeria, it's globally. Regardless of this fuel subsidy, there was already inflation, right, that people were dealing with globally, whether you are in the US, in Brazil, Dubai, it's everywhere. So essentially you have to be smart, you have to be careful, plan. You don't have an excuse to be financially illiterate. You need to be financially literate. You need to, the best, as Benjamin Franklin would say, the best investment is investment in yourself. Begin to focus on how you can educate yourself financially.
What are the steps for doing that?
So I have a platform, a free financial education platform. If you go on Instagram at wolfin_org, right? And you can we're putting out stuff. There's a lot of stuff we're planning, bringing out that will help people become financially literate. You can join my community we're building a global community of modern wealthy women, the richer woman. That's for women. And it's more of we're looking at finance and lifestyle, right? So finance and lifestyle now, it's the same essentially, because this is going to put an effect on marriages. People are going to be arguing, people are going to be very agitative in marriages now. Why are you putting on the gen? Why are you going to this place? Do you understand? Things, so how do you manage all of that? Because it has a ripple effect on everything. School, parenting. You're going to be very angry in the house. You need to take care of your mental health. So that's where the richer woman comes in the lifestyle. But Wolfing is more mainstream financial education. And then I'm writing a book.
Another book.
Yes. And I've been writing this since 2020. It's my biggest book yet. It's called Journey to Wealth. And it's an encyclopedia for money. It's huge. It's huge. And it has everything, all the knowledge I put in there, like putting everything that I know in that book to help people for such a time as this.
I can't wait for it to come out and read it. But I have a question. You talked about the women. What about the man? Because I can almost picture a lot of frustrated men. Because in our culture, the man is the breadwinner. But with everything going on now, how does he even navigate around that? Particularly seeing that they were told not to show vulnerability. So how do they navigate?
Obviously, so the Wolfing part of it, Wolfing_org is a platform for men and women, but it's just information, it's just education. It's not a community. Now, women thrive in communities, right? So in times past, let's say you see a woman going to the stream to fetch water, and that's when they kind of communicate and talk. So women thrive in communities. Unfortunately, men don't thrive in communities, but that's why I guess if a man is married, it helps because it's sort of a small community, right? And research shows that women are actually better money managers. Right, there's a lot of research and statistics to that. So if a man is married, right, then you have your wife, hopefully, who is a better money manager and can help you navigate that. But in some cases, it's actually the man that is a bit more prudent, financially. So I have all this financial education, right, but my husband is more the money, he'll help you manage, So it depends, right? I guess organizations, companies right now, HR needs to think about financial well-being of its staff, whether men or women. You need to invest in trainings for that focus on financial well-being. It is very, very important because the finances affects mental health and everything else, and it affects the productivity in the organization. So it is a benefit that needs to be included in a package where you have sessions, you have they can go to financial counselors, right? Almost like how you have therapists and have sessions. So HR and companies need to make that, even SMEs, you need to invest in your staff, their financial well-being. Because honestly, sometimes it's not even about earning more money. It's just about learning to manage what you have. And if you can manage what you have, you most likely won't even need to change jobs, right? Because you understand how to make what you have last and be sustainable.
Wow, that's, it's interesting because I decided I wanted to talk about money in June. I wasn't quite sure how. And then I decided, okay, let today be about navigating today's world. I wasn't quite sure how. I wrote the questions. I still wasn't quite sure how. But everything you've said has literally answered all of those questions and much more. And I'm I'm blown away. I can't wait to watch this again. I'm super, super happy. Thank you, Omilola. We've actually come to the end. It always goes by very, very quickly.
I thought you were going to say, do you want to come again?
In fact, if you want to come the whole of June, I don't have a problem with it. So let's talk after. But yeah, I think that should be the plan. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much. I really hope that we've been able to learn something, because it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough, but hopefully it's rough for a purpose. So I hope we've been able to take something away with us today. Thank you for watching. Fumi, Helen, and I will very quickly wrap up the show. So please stay with us for a few more minutes whilst we do that. Thank you.